Hi guys, it's Nicole, and today I have a scrapbook process video to share with you. This is not part of an ongoing series. This was a recent sketch bundle purchase that I had made, and I had just decided that I liked some of the sketches, and so I prepped some of them, took them to the crop, did not get to them. The sketch bundle is it's 10 one-page sketches that they all have 5 photos. But what I liked about them is when I was looking at the sample image, I noticed that a lot of the details that you could kind of peek at in the marketing photo looked like it would go with 6x6 papers, or just kind of had a lot of different patterns. And that's typically the type of sketches that I gravitate towards and like to use. So I am using sketch number 9, which again, it's from a 10 page bundle. I don't know that I'm going to do any kind of commitment to working through all 10. It was just one of those things that caught my eye. I liked it, looked good, wanted to use it, kind of wanted to do something a little bit different. And I had prepped this for the crop. Like I said, I was planning on hopefully getting to this, then I did not. And I had recently purchased this dog mini collection from Simple Stories. And this is one of those prime examples of when I'm chatting with friends about collections and shopping in general. I think we all do this. We all kind of get suckered in with the marketing photo and the photo that's on the front of the collection kit. And there's a reason for that. People that make scrapbook collections know exactly what they're doing to make it look as enticing as possible. And this was one of those ones where I probably wouldn't have purchased the collection kit. I probably should have just done the sticker sheet, and maybe instead of getting one sheet of 6 patterns, I should have done the 3 patterns that I really liked and maybe just get 2 sheets of each or something. Because it was at this point when I was pulling papers and trying to decide what I wanted to do as far as mixing up these patterns. There was a lot of what I consider more busy and not a lot of B-sides, which isn't necessarily uncommon in a mini collection. A mini collection, you're going to get more of that heavy emphasis on the theme, which is kind of why it's created as a mini collection. So my solution in this situation was to just pull out some 6x6 scraps that I kind of keep on my desk that are just sort of all B-sides. It's a lot of the Doodlebug petite prints, a couple of my favorite things pads. I think there's a Lawn Fawn wood grain one, just stuff that I know is gonna read as a solid color but still has a texture or a pattern to it, because that's what I prefer to mix in with my busier patterns. Now, I don't know why, but like I said, I'm typically drawn to the sketches that have a bunch of little pieces or a bunch of little shapes or a bunch of patterns, but I suck at figuring out an order to them. And I think it took me an entire episode of the show that I was watching. I am doing a rewatch of 24 because that's my comfort show, especially when crafting. So I was like, you know what? Let's see if Jack Bauer can kind of get me back into crafting. And he has. But it took me a whole episode to kind of figure out a pattern. I even used washi tape to try to keep them together. I ended up somehow messing this up even though they're taped together, and I just kind of started pulling stuff off and putting different colors in. Basically, I just try to have a good mix where maybe there's not a ton of green together or a ton of red together, because to me, my eye is drawn to that. I think it's also a little bit easier to do this when it's not at a diagonal for some reason. I feel you tilt anything and my brain just can't function anymore. And this was also one of those things where as I was cutting my papers, I'm not sure if you guys could tell, but I do this thing where I will temporarily attach a sheet of cardstock or even like chipboard to my trimmer at the measurement that I want all my repeated cuts to be, so that when I put my paper in there, it's butting up against the edge of the trimmer and it's also butting up against just that edge of the paper. Because I am either too lazy or just too forgetful to order myself a 1-inch square punch, but like a friend of mine said, that creates a waste of paper, which I was like, yeah, that's true. But at the same point, I need to waste paper. Like when you do this type of design style, you're using like a 1-inch piece of paper, maybe. Obviously, if I was doing this as like a full background, I probably would have used a lot more paper, but not in this capacity. This was about the point where I was like, okay, we've messed up. Just put them on however you can. I did cover the background with ATG. This is just a scrap of some white textured cardstock that I had. I do prefer to use textured cardstock for this type of design because it's easier to pull it up and move the papers around. Ask me how I know. I then just trimmed off the excess because I'm going to do a bunch of stitching. Now, had I thought about it, and if you guys decide to do anything like this, it's at this stage you want to go ahead and attach it to your background layout and stitch through the background layout. And that's because I'm stitching on a diagonal. When you get to the edge, your thread isn't going to want to lay nicely where it looks like it's continuing to go in that direction. So this slowed me down a lot because, and I don't remember if I left it in the video. I probably didn't because I think I just turned my camera off and I was chatting with a friend and, like I said, watching 24. I like to just kind of put a little bit of glue, lay my thread over it, let it dry for a little bit, pull it around to the back, put a little bit more glue, give it another minute to dry, and then continue my stitching so that it lays nicely over the edge. If I had just gone and stitched straight onto my background paper, I wouldn't have had to deal with that because I would have had my stitch end going through the background. It would have been like the right angle. It's one of those things where it won't bother a lot of people, but for me, when I'm taking like the time and effort for something this detailed, I notice when my thread is sort of wonky. So I torture myself and take the time to try to fix it as much as I can. Luckily, things like glue and tape are typically readily available. I tend to just use a ruler lately and kind of eyeball it. I do have 2 different stitching rulers. One, I kind of think the holes are too far apart for my preference. One, they're too close for my preference. So I've kind of just gotten to the point where I eyeball it. I also chose to use black DMC embroidery thread, which I wasn't really thinking about it. Had I thought about it, I probably would have swapped it out for like a dark gray, just for the fact that for some reason the black DMC is so much like fuzzier. I don't know how to explain it. There's a couple colors that I use a lot when I'm cross stitching that I will almost always use like first to get it out of the way, and then I'm not messing with it or trying to get it to fit in different spaces. Some of the colors just suck. They're fuzzy, or they break, or they fray. Black is not my favorite. It looks good, but so this is, I went ahead and I felt like it was going to get a little lost on the wood grain paper, so I just grabbed some more white textured cardstock to kind of put this together as like a DIY collage at the top. I did edit my photos to be the same that's depicted in the sketch. So there's 1 3x5 and then 4 3x2.5 photos. And then I'm going to use a whole bunch of glue and some weight to get my stitched piece on there and get it kind of dry. And this, I want to say I have like, most of the time when I do a process video, I have like maybe 4 or 5 clips to kind of put together, edit anything out. This was like 20 because this was one of those ones where I only had, 20, 30 minutes here and there to kind of come up here and play with this. And so it was just little bites across like a week to get this done. And so it's just kind of all over the place. At this point, I decided on my title. I went back to the Writing to Remember ebook that Scrapbook Generation has. I don't know that I've read any of the other part of the book because I always open up the separate PDF that's just for titles. I looked at the sticker sheet that came with the collection, and there wasn't anything on there because a lot of times I'll pull a title off of like one of the phrase stickers or one of the big icons. I wasn't seeing anything that I loved, so I just went to that PDF and got a title from there, and it was basically a play on the word positively, spelled like pause, like dog paws. And I was like, okay, great, I'll just make some dickers, which if you don't know, those are DIY thickers, basically stacked die cuts with alphabet dies. I absolutely love making these. I used some leftover of that white cardstock that I made my like big mat with. For 2 of the layers, I used at this point a red Doodlebug Petite Prince, and I really struggled to kind of pick a color, and that's something that happens a lot with me when I do these designs that I gravitate towards, where you have a lot of little pieces or a lot of different patterns, and then you're coming and you're putting a title on top. Hindsight, I probably would have been better off doing like a metallic or something, and it would have shown up a little bit better. At first I was like, oh, I'll do red because there's not a ton of the red squares kind of going in the area where I'm going to put my title. My title ended up being longer than sort of what's depicted on the sketch, that doesn't bother me. It's just the fact that I think I show it on here. By the time I get it on the layout, I'm like, oh, I don't like it. Like I don't like when like your letters are the same color are touching paper that's the same color. It's one of those things where I'm like, no, I need you to stand out, not blend in this case. I'm gonna go ahead and glue them onto my layout though, because the nice thing about doing like DIY dickers is I know that I can just put another layer on top even if they're attached to my layout, and it's super easy. It doesn't really make them that much thicker. It's just one more layer of paper. If anything, it gives them a little bit more distance coming off of all of those pieces, and that's fine. I also tend to like to mix things like large die cut letters with small alphabet stickers. At this point, I thought I was going to use that one on the top, the like aqua color from Doodlebug. I actually ended up switching it for the sticky keys from October Afternoon on the bottom. Just kind of change things as I get going in the process, but I do like to pull like more than one option and take it to my desk and kind of make a decision later. I forgot that I bought this sticky mat from scrapbook.com a while ago with the intention of actually using it to layer my dickers on. So I'll revisit that another day. I kind of forgot about it because I use like silhouette mats sometimes to layer small die cuts. But this, I was like, you know what? Let me try this instead of like how I put washi tape across my letters, because of the grid and then the fact that I can kind of move it around everywhere. I wasn't loving the red. I thought about doing vellum. I decided, you know what, screw it. We're just gonna, it's fine. It is what it is. It actually worked really good to kind of put them all down at once. However, I did need to reprint my photos in the middle because I wasn't thinking about the fact that it's a adhesive mat, and I left it sitting there with a acrylic block to kind of put some pressure on the letters while they dried. And when I pulled it off, because I print at home, the print papers just, easily sticks to anything else that's sticky, and so I ended up ripping some of it. So I end up reprinting that and just pulling it off, putting a new photo on there. I'm not sure if I left it in because it was one of those things where I was like irritated with myself. But we all know that my process is messy. We're not running a professional show here. Mistakes happen. It's kind of why I print at home. Why I can kind of make my own embellishments, because if they go wrong or I don't like it, it's an okay fix. I think this is the point where I went to go print the photo because I didn't want to glue the. So it was a pretty easy fix because I had left it open on my computer, but I actually sized it wrong. So I ended up having to reprint it again, but it's fine. I tend to give my daughter what I consider a misprint. Usually it's just the wrong size or I printed too many. I give them to her. She puts them on her bulletin board or puts them on her wall or does different projects with stuff. So she'll probably appreciate pictures of her little puppy, who's not so little anymore. And I'm a little sad about it. It's one of those things where you know he's not going to stay little forever, but you kind of want him to stay little forever. I think the vet said he's probably going to kind of top out at like 20 pounds. And I think the last time we were there, he was like 14 or 15. And I just keep looking at him and I'm like, stop it. Stop growing. You need to stay little. So this is kind of where I started rethinking like the additional part of my title. Oh, sorry, there's the sketch. We might have to cover that. Okay. So it was one of those things where I was like, okay, do I want to cut more letters with a different font? What do I want to do? And then the more I looked at it, I was like, you know what? When I look at the cover image, like the marketing image for this collection, it's not like these bright colors like in the Doodlebug collection. It's more like muted jewel tones almost. And so I was like, honestly, the October afternoon one's probably match better, so let's just do that. When I use letters like this, very rarely do I put them flat to the page just because I like them to have the dimension of a foam square behind it. I feel like it makes them, I don't want to say they're boring, but it just kind of gives them, I don't know, some more detail, if you could give them more detail. Plus the fact that they're going over stitching. Even if I had put extra glue on them, they would have not laid flat in general. So foam adhesive is where it's at. I typed up my journaling real quick. Normally I do try to type up journaling for more than one layout at a time, but I don't know what I'm going to work on next. So I don't mind technically wasting a sheet of cardstock to print my journaling on, because half the sheet that I'm going to run the sentiment strip die through, some of those blank pieces I end up stacking and layering. And then I just take the right page and stick it in like a scrap folder on my desk. And I kind of use that for layering things for like Dickers and stacked hearts, anything like that. I don't need to run it through my printer to print journaling on it again. It just goes into a thing that's, you know, use it up for die cutting, use it up for dimension, that kind of thing. Lately I've been doing 2 layers of blank strips and then the 1 layer with my typed journaling on it. I can cut it fairly easily with like the little Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer. I think visually I like it with 4 layers, but that's kind of hard to cut through and I can't cut straight with scissors, so 3 it is. I also don't think you necessarily have to cut like the extra off. One of these times I kind of want to do like a center justified on my journaling and just go ahead and type it and kind of leave the white on the sides and see what kind of look that gives. And then, I had actually pulled this Tim Holtz media mat out. I don't typically film with it because my lights tend to glare off of it, I think I'm going to try to pull it into videos more often to see how bad the glare is. You guys let me know down in the comments if that type of thing bothers you, because I keep looking at those big glass mats. I can't think of the website. I'm blanking on it. I saw Heather Balzer using it in one of her videos recently. I don't remember when I noticed that she had it, but it was like a recent video that I was like, wait, did she get it? And I messaged her and she was like, yeah, I love it. But I have like specific lights that I had installed over my work desk to film, because sometimes I do scrapbook at night and you don't see the lights on my desk when I'm using like a rubber surface like this. But I do like that with a glass mat, it's way easier to clean and work on in general. But I know that the glare bothers me, so I'm kind of curious if the glare bothers you. Like, and I don't know anybody else. I tried to kind of go through my subscriptions and like look real quick and see if the people that like I watch and I follow, if they're using a glass mat with overhead lighting. And I didn't really see anybody. So let me know. Let's discuss that down below, because I'm really curious if you either use a glass mat, film with a glass mat, or just watch somebody that uses a glass mat and has lights. Let me know your opinions on that, because like I said, I'm curious. Again, I don't run a professional show, but I do at least try to not annoy anybody with like glares. I do try to keep my drink out of the frame. I do try to keep my phone out of the frame. Sometimes it doesn't work out for me. We're trying over here. I kept my embellishments real simple. I used my lawn fawn hearts to make some different sized hearts, tucked in a couple phrase stickers, and then I used some of the circle like icons that were on the sticker sheet to kind of mix in and break up the shape of all the hearts. This was one of those ones where I could have used some icon stickers from the sheet. I could have used some more interesting stuff, but I really wanted the focus as far as like the embellishing detail to be all the work going on with the stitching and the paper and the title, and then the focus on the photos. So everything else I just tend to kind of tuck in either the corners, or I'll tuck stuff in and around the title, that kind of thing. And just sometimes you just know that's enough. It's good. It's visually interesting. And the places that I want the focus, it's there. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. I've got photos of my completed layout and some detail shots. Like I said, I love chatting with you guys down in the comments and over in my Facebook group. So go ahead and open the description box if you're looking for links to anything, and check out the comments for anything that people are discussing down there, especially regarding the glass mats. I'm interested to see where that goes. And I'll catch you guys later.